Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter.
Hi there guys, it's Adam Martin here, and welcome back to another episode of the Now Review. Now 100 Hits Party. So anyone who's familiar with the Now series, or indeed the Now Review show that I run, is that Now have done countless party albums. We've had Now That's What I Call a Party, we've had party anthems, summer party, parties with a year after them, 2018, 2019, etc. So Now are no stranger to putting out party albums. Now in terms of what they contain, I've always thought they're of a varying degree of quality, and I was a bit skeptical when they announced this one, because I thought, oh great, that's what we need. This brand new 100 hits theming, this is just going to be the party albums again, but with 40 extra tracks. So, fair to say I was a bit underwhelmed, but let's have a look. So first of all, the cover is actually not that bad. I love the gold text there with the purple 100 hits font, the balloons, the fireworks, basically everything you'd expect for a party. I don't think it's too cluttered. I thought it was at first, but I actually kind of like it. And I like this little label. 5 CDs for every party, and it lets you know what you're in for. You've got 80s, 90s, noughties, 10s, disco, and cheese. I'm so happy they put cheese on there. If anyone remembers the April Fool's meme Now did, where they said they were going to release Now That's What I Call Cheese, which I wish they'd still do. There's the spine. The 100 hits is actually the same colour as the rest, thank goodness. And there is your crunch look at the track list. Now, if you see there, you got 21st Century Party, another 21st Century Party, 80s and 90s Party, Disco Party, and Cheese Party. And we're going to look what's on each of those parties right now. So on disc 1 is 21st Century Party. So you got Calvin Harris, Dua Lipa, Justin Timberlake, Avicii, Kylie Minogue, Mark Ronson. Basically, a lot of big hits from the noughties and the 10s. Sugar Babes About You Now, great song. Murder on the Dance Floor by Sophie Ellis-Bextor. Finishing with Old Town Road, of course, probably the biggest, or certainly one of the biggest hits of 2019. Disc 2 is also 21st Century Party. You got Kygo and Whitney Houston with Higher Love, Medusa and Good Boys, Craig David and Big Nasty, looking all the way down. I mean, I could critique this a bit more, but really, there's been so many great bangers over the teens and the noughties that it's hard to put them all onto 2 discs. Finishing with Of the Night by Bastille, which, if you haven't heard it, is a great mash between Rhythm of the Night and Rhythm as a Dancer, which is consequently my theme music, if you like. Oh, and look, there you go, follow them on all social medias. Did we have the app? Yep, I forgot to show that. There's an advert for the Now app. And on disc 3 is the 80s and 90s party. So, of course, you've got to have Michael Jackson and Billie Jean, Whitney Houston, Aha, Kenny Loggins, Dexy, Cyndi Lauper, Culture Club. This is the music I love at parties, man. Like, this is great. Never Gonna Give You Up, of course. Everybody, Backstreet's Back, Ice Ice Baby, Robbie Williams, finishing with the Beastie Boys, and you got to fight for your right to party. How apt that this is on the party album. Disc 4 is the Disco Party, so more 70s stuff. So you've got Frankie Valli, December 1963. You've got ABBA, of course, Gloria Gaynor, Earth, Wind and Fire, The Weather Girls, The Jacksons, Hot Chocolate. Basically a lot of great hits from the 70s. I think most of these are from the 70s anyway. And you finish with Get Up, I Feel Like Being a Sex Machine by James Brown. And then you got disc 5, which is the Cheese Party, which is a great disc. Louis Vega, Aqua, Steps, Olivia Newton-John, John Travolta, Wigfield, Village People. Basically all those songs that get played at clubs at like 3 in the morning when you're too drunk to care what it is. Or at the school discos. I love the Cha-Cha Slide. You can fight me if you don't. Surprised to put Brown Girl in the Ring. I quite like that one. Billy Ray Cyrus, who actually features twice on this technically, if you count Old Town Road. Finishing with Build Me Up Buttercup with the Foundations. I wouldn't necessarily call that cheese. That's more like just classic, but sure, I'll give you that. Now, before we talk more about the arrangements on this, let's have a look at one of the discs. And it's back there. Ah, okay, so we've got pink with yellow balloons. I mean, it's not that inoffensive. It actually looks like it could be some sort of candy, but yeah, I've seen a lot worse disc designs. Shove that back in there. Now, overall, I've got to say, I'm actually really happy with this album and the track listing. They've got a big variety on there. You should know by now that I'm big on variety on these albums that don't necessarily specify a decade, but you've got everything from the 70s with the disco stuff, you've got the 80s, the 90s, and all the 21st century stuff as well. So there's actually quite a comprehensive list of songs in there. It's better than some of the other party albums that just focus on like the last 10 years or so. So probably the best party album now's released, I've got to say that. However, I would probably do the organisation a bit differently. So, notice these first two are 21st Century Party. I would have just preferred them to do, say, disc 1 is the 2010s and disc 2 be the 2000s. That way you've got completely separate discs. It's fine that they're jumbled up, it doesn't really make that much of a difference, but I would have liked the clear decade split there. 80s and 90s, I mean, yeah, that's self-explanatory. Disco, I'm in two minds whether I would have called that Disco Party or just renamed it to 70s, just keep the decade theme going, but it works either way. Absolutely happy with Cheese Party, wouldn't change that for the world. Best disc on this album, no doubt. I mean, if they'd added one more disc, they made it 6 CDs, because I think the very first 100 hits, 80s was 6 discs. If they put 6 on here, I guess it wouldn't have been 100 hits then. Even more 100 hits. I would have loved the 80s and 90s to be separate, but if you're going for 100 songs on 5 discs, then that is what you're getting. But despite my little organisational quips, I mean, as you can see looking down here, the songs on here are guaranteed to work at a party. They've really been smart with their choices. And again, the fact they've gone across different decades is a massive yes from me. So, all in all, a really solid album. And I can see this being played at a lot of New Year's parties, especially as we're entering a new decade with the 2020s. I feel people want to reflect on not just the 2010s, but all the other decades we've had prior. So where can you get it from? You can get it from all the usual locations, the supermarkets, the HMVs, from between £11 and £13. It will probably be in the HMV 2 for 15 range in a couple of months if you'd rather wait, although to be honest, with New Year approaching, as I say, if you want something like this, I would get this now. The other albums were either hit or miss, but this is probably the best now party album that they have ever released. And there's something for everyone, which is quite nice. You know, whether you're into your 80s, your 90s, or your 21st century stuff, your disco, or your cheese, there is something on this album. There's at least 20 songs for you. And that is all for this installment of the Now Review. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please comment below whether you're going to pick up Now 100 Hits Party or if you've already picked it up, and what's your favourite party track off this album. Let me know in the comments. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you are brand new, and until the next one, I will see you guys next time.
Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Hooks Media, Ben Freeman, Ethan Carberry-Holt, Bruce Danton, The Broken Kitsumanoid, and Francine Salazar, our AMTV staff members.